And tonight on our Great American panel, he is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, Fox News contributor, USA Today columnist. Bob Beckel is here. He's a nationally syndicated radio talk show host on the Salem Radio Network, partner at the law firm Hewitt Walensky. Hugh Hewitt is back, and she is a Fox News medical contributor. Dr. Sonora Coomer is back with us. Thank you, by the way, for staying with us the night of the Chilean miners.
Absolutely, it was exciting to watch.
It really was. All right, we got another lib friend of yours, Beckel. This case, Representative Betty McCollum deliberately omitting "under God" from the pledge.
The pledge will be led by the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Ms. McCollum.
If members and guests would please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Proud of that, Bob?
What are you talking about?
One nation under
now, I
God,
understand that. Maybe she forgot it. Maybe she didn't remember it.
Maybe she's a liberal that just doesn't want the
I
words
see.
under God.
Let me see if I get this right. She didn't say under God, therefore she's a communist and like all the rest of us liberals. Okay, I got it. Why don't you guys take it?
When was the last time you forgot under God when you said the pledge, Bob?
I use God very carefully, except when I'm talking to Hannity. And
Have
then I
you
use
ever
it
forgotten under God in the pledge?
No, I don't remember if I did or not. When I was drinking, I probably did, yeah.
Oh. It is remarkable. I had Teresa Collette on my program today. She's running in the 4th District in Minnesota, and I think that gave the St. Paul voters a real good look at the woman they've elected 4 times.
Yeah, I did. To me, it was on purpose. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you know, nowadays it's politically correct to be everything else except Christian, so you feel like you're always apologizing if you are a Christian. And you know, as somebody in Congress, to be able to eliminate that term, which was set up by our founding fathers, is such a shame. And there's no excuse for it.
Yeah, I think there are some liberals, Bob, that if they had their way, you know, this concept, our founding document, our declaration that we're endowed by our Creator, they would take that out too.
And I think if they had their way, that some conservatives would become fascists. I mean, so...
now, wait a minute. Now, stop. That's a caricature.
No, you just gave me a caricature. You just gave me a caricature.
What conservative would want to be a fascist?
I have no idea. I have no idea, because I wouldn't put something like that on. When did she say that, by the way?
She said it just the other day.
Just the other day. Okay. I wouldn't take something like that and try to draw a conclusion. I've been down at some of the Tea Party rallies, and I was the first one to say that I thought they would have a major impact, and I've never raised some of their signs.
Bob,
but if you could raise some of the signs...
She biffed it twice.
Actually, it was 2002 when she said it.
She said the...
2002. Okay.
All right, so wait a minute. It's all bets on. It's a campaign. It's an election season. Why shouldn't it be fair game?
Well, 2002, let me see, that was 8 years ago. I'm sure maybe she had a long night.
Hang on. It was such a big deal for liberals, you know, what
there were many days when I forgot my name, okay? So let's just let it go. Could you move on to another subject?
Yes.
Thank you.
You said something on this program. You see, he gets to run the content of the show. We were talking about Juan Williams. Charles Krauthammer defended Juan, and you did too, by the way, to your credit. I give you a lot of credit for this. Here's what Charles Krauthammer said.
I'm on the set with Juan at least once a week. I've been on the set with Nina here for almost 17 years, once a week.
Fox.
Well, on this set with you.
Yes.
And I don't understand the inconsistency here. Why is it okay for Nina to express opinions as she has, tartly, sharply, unashamedly, and openly? And she's an honored correspondent there. In fact, that they mention your status here on the show in your biography at NPR. And Juan, because he expresses opinions, he gets canned from NPR.
What he was referring to is Nina Totenberg, who wished that Jesse Helms and his grandchildren got AIDS. There was another example, so-called humorist on NPR, said the world would be a better place if 4 million Christians evaporated, and using a sexual pejorative for the Tea Party movement on NPR, nobody gets fired.
Right, and Charles's point is absolutely correct, where he says he's put on there as an analyst. He's not put on there to report the news. And an opinion is simply that. It's an opinion. So he gave his opinion. He's the one that has to deal with the consequences of that in regards to maybe people writing in and disagreeing with him. But to get fired over giving an opinion, it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, I worked for PBS for 10 years for KCET in Los Angeles Nightly News. And it's a joke. It is so far to the left. And NPR is further to the left.
How did you survive 10 years?
I was like Beckel on the set, except there are more liberals around around here with tonight than there are at PBS in Los Angeles and nationally. NPR is way to the left, almost Stalinist now.
Well,
and I believe they are now branded, and I'm glad that you recognize it's.
Well, Becca,
no,
you actually said you agree with Juan.
I did agree with Juan. I think anybody who gets on an airplane and sees a bunch of Muslims on it who's not nervous is lying, number one. But number two, this woman, the president of NPR, who said, everybody seems to have missed this. She said that this is between Juan and his psychiatrist. Who is she to say that? I mean, NPR, it's illiberal what they did. It is illiberal. Yep. And that's what was the point I was making. Now, I took a lot of heat back in Washington for that, as you could probably imagine, from some of the politically correct people. But that's one of the problems my party has got. We get out here too far and make it politically correct out of something that's so obvious. And you're right, it was an opinion. It was his own, how he felt.
Isn't this that really this caricature the left paints of conservatives as being intolerant? The real intolerance I see in America today, Bob, is coming from your friends.
I could see them on both sides, but I tell you, I've had a lot of intolerance the last couple of months, believe me.
Not for me. All right, we'll continue more with our great American panel right after the break. All right, we continue with our great American panel, and 8 days away, Mr. Beckel, we've got a very important election coming, and we've got a lot of things happening. Bill Clinton can't fill an auditorium in Detroit. We've got a gubernatorial candidate saying that Barack Obama can take his endorsement and shove it. And we've got Gene Taylor saying, yeah, you know what, I actually voted for John McCain, not for the anointed one.
Is there a question there?
So the question is, why don't Democrats support their...
Well, you've given me three examples. Look, if I can just put my analyst hat on here for a second, the interesting thing that's going to happen here next Tuesday is every wave election we've had, and there have been several of them in the last 100 years, but if the House goes, the Senate goes as well. It's very rare for only one body. It's never happened for one body to switch over.
But 10 seats is a lot.
Well, it is a lot. I don't think they are going to. This may be the first time you're going to see a split. The House, I do believe, will be probably in the upper 40s to 50s. And in the Senate, I don't believe they can carry the Senate. I know Dick Morris thinks they can, but I just don't believe it. I think it may very well be the first time in history. And it'll be a late night, too, because it's going to be West Coast. It's going to be out. You got two races out that way.
We may be waiting for Washington State to come in.
Carly Fiorina has had a great surge. She is now neck and neck in the polls. The LA Times polls broken. I saw Dick Morris on with you earlier. He's got this right. It comes down to Washington State and California, and we'll be up late, as you guys will as well. And I think it looks very, very good for Carly for California right now, because people are tired of Barbara Bush.
Let's also remember that 3 million people will cast their votes before next Tuesday. They're voting right now. I mean, they're voting in 29 states have early voting. It'll be 43 states next time around. And early voting has got its good parts and its bad parts to it. I mean, you don't get the real rush of the race, but the big advertising last week. But here's the interesting statistic. There's going to be spent $3.6 billion on these races this year, which is $100 million more than was spent in 2008, the presidential year. Unbelievable amount of money coming in from both sides, but a lot of money. And I tell you, I wouldn't want to be an undecided voter. Can you imagine? And undecideds for the first time have gone up, not down. And a part of that is there's so much negative advertising out there that it's driving people into the undecided column. In the end, I think they'll come back to the Republicans.
I don't know that it's negative advertising so much as people are just tired of politics as usual, and that the politics is turning out to be corrupt no matter where you turn. Here you are with the Democrats claiming to be the party for the regular folk, for the American, and yet there's as much corruption within their party as they claim is in any other party.
How would this impact you as a doctor? I mean, you've obviously studied Obamacare. How does that impact what you do for a living?
It's going to impact my profession tremendously if Obamacare continues to go through, especially if it goes through the way that it is planned in 2014 and without tort reform. So reimbursements are going to go down, which is going to certainly make it much more difficult to make a living. So we're going to have a doctor shortage,
number one.
We will definitely have a doctor shortage.
And we're going to have longer waits.
Longer waits.
Inferior care.
How do you know any of that?
I'm educating. Hang on.
You're not educating me at all. And frankly, the doctor's not educating me either. We don't know the answer to that question. But
look at Boeing. Wait a second. They raised their copay.
What is not going to happen is you're not going to be able to change that bill. Let's face it. There's one thing Obama's got is a veto pen. You're not going to be able to change that bill. But how about this for a negotiated settlement? What if Obama sat down and said, "We'll do away with the mandatory purchase of insurance and put tort reform." No, wait a second. And tort reform. If you put tort reform,
hang on, we're running out of time. What about if the new Congress, assuming that it becomes Republican, they vote to repeal it, as Hugh is suggesting here? If that happens, What does Obama do?
Vetoes it in the New York Senate. First, it won't get through the Senate because they don't have 60 votes in the Senate. I mean, even if they were to take the Senate with 51 votes, there's no way you get through.
So the 64% of independents that want it repealed, Hugh.
He's saying screw all the voters out there. Obamacare is driving this eletion, as the Boeing thing showed. If the president vetoes it, if the Senate doesn't put it through, 22 Democrats are on that ballot in 2 years.
It took Medicare 8 years to get favorable.
Well, Americans are going to hurt from this policy. They are just not going to have the same access to medical care as they have enjoyed. Everything's going to go down besides reimbursement. Money's going to go down for research and development. It's going to hurt everybody across the board, not just doctors, but most importantly, the patients themselves.
It's going to get 40 million people insured, including me, who doesn't have insurance. That's why I just put my cards on the table.
You don't have insurance?
I don't have any insurance.
Why not?
No. You know this.
You can afford it.
I don't have insurance.
Well,
but nobody objected to pre-existing conditions being put in the bill.
So we should ruin the economy to get Bob insurance.
Sure, why not?
Okay.
That's fair deal.
That is all the time we have left this evening. We will worry about Bob's insurance later. Let not your...
Generations from now, we will be able to look back and tell our children that this was the moment when we began to provide care for the sick and good jobs for the jobless. This was the moment when the rise of the ocean began to slow and our planet began to heal. This was the moment when we ended the war and secured our nation and restored our image as the last best hope on earth.